a Hoffman v. South African Airways 2001 case, the court had raised issues regarding the employment policy of SAA of HIV-positive employees. The first issue identified was the issue of vaccination against diseases, which included the yellow fever vaccination. HIV-positive candidates responded less well to the vaccine than their HIV-negative counterparts. A possible solution to this can be the appropriate treatment of antibiotics as well as counseling and monitoring vaccinations within SAA. Secondly, SAA specifically banned HIV-positive employees from being part of the cabin crew but could be employed within any other position of SAA. SAA can ensure that HIV-positive cabin crew are only placed in flight routes where yellow fever is not prevalent. Lastly, SAA's testing practices raised red flags as new applicants for the positions were tested for HIV and not conducting HIV tests on employees that are already employed. A solution can be that SAA can conduct a yearly HIV test on all cabin crew to ensure that all HIV-positive employees receive the appropriate counseling, monitoring, vaccinations, and the administration of the appropriate antibiotic prophylaxis. If necessary, further provided the results of such tests are strictly confidential and the results may not be used as basis for any differentiation between employees. There are many positive steps employers can take to deal with HIV/AIDS epidemic. These include developing a workplace policy on HIV/AIDS, negotiating benefits such as medical aid, insurance, retirement benefits, and disability cover in the interest of all employees. I will now hand over to Caela, who will be addressing the applicable and available psychological assessments relating to HIV/AIDS and other infectious diseases in the workplace.
Thank you, Kate. As previously said, I will be speaking about the applicable and available psychological assessments. To start off, let us begin by defining what exactly a psychological assessment or test is. A psychological assessment is a process of testing that combines a series of techniques to form a conclusion about an individual and their behavior, personality, and capabilities. Psychological testing is divided into 4 primary types, namely clinical interviews. This is to gather background information and family history to gain a sense of their mental health and to understand why a person may need medical treatment. Secondly, assessment of intellectual functioning or one's IQ. This measures one's ability to learn based on how much they have learned in the past. It is a component of measuring one's intelligence. Thirdly, personality assessments. This helps to understand a combination of factors that have made up who you are. Fourthly, behavioral assessments. This is observing an individual in their natural state to assist in understanding how their brain works. So applying the psychological assessment to our chosen case of Hoffman v. South African Airways. In our case study of choice, the employees that would need to have psychological testing done are applying for positions as cabin attendants for South African Airways. The necessary psychological assessments that would be performed on cabin and flight attendants is the mental test for cabin crew. The mental test for cabin crew, or otherwise known as the flight attendant test, is a combination of psychometric tests for cabin crew and aptitude tests that would measure competencies necessary for the role. Cabin crew would then also have to undergo a series of behavioral psychometric tests, as not every type of person would be able to endure the stressful surroundings of the aircraft, as well as having to deal with potential emergencies involving the safety of large groups of people whilst under pressure and pressed for time. Below is a list of the various tests that would be performed on a potential employee. Number 1, the mental personality profiler. This assesses the candidate's behavioral competencies required for a cabin crew role and is based on the Big 5 model of personality. Secondly, the situational judgment test. This assesses the functional understanding of a cabin crew role through real-life situational judgment questions. Thirdly, communication skills. This assesses the candidate's ability to communicate effectively in verbal and written English. Fourthly, decision-making. This assesses the decision-making ability of the candidate to identify problems and evaluate alternative solutions. I will now hand over to Megan to discuss psychological interventions.
Psychological interventions are any actions that may assist in an individual's mood to change. They are techniques and strategies that a psychologist may advise the individual to attempt when headed in a negative direction, either through a negative or harmful action, thinking negative thoughts or experiencing negative feelings. These interventions also force the individual to think before heading towards a negative outcome. They assist the individual to reflect and avoid impulses. Psychological interventions can assist an HIV-positive person or a person with another infectious disease to cope with the various stages of their disease, as well as enhance their quality of life. Say, for example, an employee has been newly diagnosed to be HIV positive. This new information will have an enormous impact on their state of mind, their drive and their emotional well-being, and this may also reflect in the workplace and the way in which they perform their duties. Many years ago, HIV and AIDS and other infectious diseases were once a death sentence. Today, they are very manageable diseases, and infected people can continue to live very normal lives. In most cases, the interventions needed are the side effects of the results of the disease, such as depression, anxiety, mental instability, stress, and trauma. So the question is, what kinds of interventions would one implement for an HIV-positive employee, as well as employees bearing other infectious diseases within the workplace, and what would assist them in coping and thriving in their day-to-day lives? Types of interventions. Firstly, make sure to listen to the employees before making any assumptions about the way that they are feeling. Only once you know their state of mind can you provide them with the necessary mental health guidelines and series of necessary actions to adopt. One should note that the human body is an integrated unit. This implies that when the immune system is under attack, as it is when an individual is struggling with the disease, one's mental state will also take a toll as one's brain functions are being affected, and this could lead to unhealthy mental conditions, for example, depression, anxiety, and stress. There is a massive link between our mental health and the rest of our body. So the role of a therapist or counselor in maintaining a positive state within the employee's mind can largely influence the impact and pace at which the disease may affect the employee. Advising the diagnosed employee to take up certain coping mechanisms and healthy habits such as support groups, positive mental activities such as meditation, breathing, and mild exercises, and a healthy eating plan can make a huge difference to their state of mind, as well as their lifestyle and abilities, as these interventions will also assist them in managing the effect of this disease. It is very easy for the diagnosed employee to feel that they are in this alone. That is why ensuring that they are aware that they have the access to the constant support systems is vital. They must know that they have a safe space to come to, and their diagnosis will always be kept confidential. I will now hand over to Caitlin to wrap it up.
In conclusion, we can see that the importance of the necessary workplace policies and procedures that must be in place in order to overcome the stigma of HIV/AIDS and other infectious diseases in the workplace by creating a safe environment for all employees. This can be done through establishing and implementing policies and procedures, educating employees about HIV/AIDS and other infectious diseases, and offering support for all those affected by any infectious diseases, as well as their families and colleagues. We would just like to say thank you for assisting us in this regard and accommodating us so we were able to get on with our syllabus. So, thank you.